Now, a research by the Center for Economics, Finance and Inequality Studies Service has indicated that if the rate of the electronic transaction levy, E-levy, had been revised to 0.5% and 54% of the existing active users patronized mobile money transactions, the expected revenue for this year would have been a little above 2.64 billion cedis. This estimate is greater than the total revenue the government anticipates from the E-levy for the year 2022. Dr. Benjamin Amwa, Executive Director of Surface, joins us on Zoom to tell us more. Grateful you could join us this afternoon. So let's understand, first of all, what you sought to establish by this survey.
Thank you very much for having me. What we did was a follow-up on a similar study we had in April concerning the preparedness of Ghanaians in the wake of the impending E-levy in May. And from that particular study, we realized that about 81.2 had indicated that they reduce their mobile money transactions if the E-levy of 1.5 is passed. So now it has been passed. We are talking about 4 or 5 months down the line. There's a need to go back to look at how the E-levy revenue basket is faring and what is contributing to what they are currently seeing as a revenue coming in, and some of the issues surrounding the E-levy. So this is just a follow-up on what we did in April, but this time around to look at the numbers and how the numbers have been so far.
So can you elaborate more on your findings and the implications for revenue generation?
Okay, so what we have established is that looking at the states that we find ourselves in, we are talking about the country needing or in need of revenue. Debt to GDP ratio, we're talking about the need to service our debt. Any initiative that will bring in more revenue is welcome. So from that point of view, it will be unwise for the government at this time to consider canceling the E-levy. The E-levy has come and the E-levy must stay. But then the issue is, what can the government do now to rake in more? If you look at the abysmal performance of the E-levy so far, we have established that a rate of 0.5% will make it more expensive for users of the E-levy to look for other means of transferring money than the current 1.5. So 0.5% is better. It brings in more money, and it will also help the country to build on its digital economy agenda.
And also worrying is that you discover that people are avoiding mobile money transactions because they do not want to pay the levy.
Absolutely. You know, the levy of 1.5% is expensive. If you look at what the telcos are charging, the telcos who are the innovators and the original owners of the product, and then if you look at the state, that is just the geographical territorial body that the service is provided, and the state is charging 1.5. The state that should be socially oriented in terms of its service. And for this particular service, the state is rather charging more than what the private sector is charging. It goes against the everyday public service of goods that we buy in town, where in many instances, public service are cheaper than private sector. But this time around, it's reverse. So what is happening is that it is expensive, and for many, the best way to avoid it is to find the loopholes in the system. And the easiest way out is to deposit the funds through the merchant and then call on the recipient to go to another merchant and to withdraw the money. Because after all, deposits is not suffering the 1.5 E-levy. So if it is deposit and then cash out, the parties involved are avoiding the E-levy. So it is simply because the rate of 1.5 is too expensive. Hence, many are finding other means to dodge it.
And so what are your recommendations, especially as government prepares to present the 2023 budget?
The recommendations are simple. Reduce it from 1.5 to 0.5. Once you do that, 0.5 becomes manageable for many people. And so even the desire to do something else to avoid it will now be more expensive when it is 0.5 than the current 1.5, because the current 1.5, it is rewarding to exploit the loopholes. If we reduce it to 0.5, it becomes more expensive to exploit the loopholes. Through that means, we are going to have a lot more individuals effecting transfers through Momo, and the government will then have the numbers, the volumes, and the values to apply the E-levy of 0.5 on, which will in the end rake in more for the government than the current 1.5.
Well, the question is whether or not the government would heed this advice, because they had a perfect opportunity to review when we, after 10 months, saw that we're not meeting the projected revenue.
Yeah, again, like you're right, but I see now the numbers are clear. The E-levy is not difficult to estimate in terms of the behavior. It is simply a summation of daily E-levy transfer in the audit trail. That is summed up to the monthly values that we see. We have gone through this for about 5 months, so you can predict the likely amount. So it should not be difficult at all for government to know whether they will or will not be able to achieve the revenue. And we are saying that do not scrap it. We are not saying scrap it because you need money, so the revenue, you need it. Keep it, but then try as much as possible to reduce it so that you can get a lot more individuals making use of the product. Again, we are talking about the digital economy. You don't want to compromise the digital economy. You also will tax the digital economy corporate tax. So it's a win-win situation if you charge a rate that benefits the users because a lot more people will use it, then you are also able to build your digital economy. So the government will have to consider the 0.5 because the 1.5 is not working.
The numbers are clear, like you point out. Dr. Benjamin Amwa, Executive Director, Surface, appreciate your time with us this afternoon.